Hello, and welcome to this course on Certified Ethical Hacker version 9, brought to you by INE. We're going to have an overview of what ethical hacking is. So the agenda for this lesson, we're going to learn what an ethical hacker is, what is the role of an ethical hacker. We're going to learn the skills of an ethical hacker, or what are the needed skills, both technical and non-technical. We will learn what's the hacking life cycle we're going to be working with throughout the entire course. And then we're going to discuss some of the ethics concerning the position of an ethical hacker. So what's an ethical hacker? Well, it shouldn't be a surprise to say that an ethical hacker is someone who is trained with hacking skills, but use them in a legal way. So they are on the legal side of the coin when it comes to hacking. Now, how is it possible to use hacking legally? The answer is companies have understood throughout the years that it is not sufficient to have experts in defensive security technology to protect their assets and their company, and that it is important that security personnel in their staff understand the offensive tactics of potential hackers, of potential enemies who might want to intrude in the network. And this is what the role of the ethical hacker is, being that person who is able to anticipate the attacks before malicious users or malicious attackers actually do. So, it's a security professional who learns to think as a hacker, and this professional will simulate attacks, but without harming the organization. And then, as an output from those attacks, tighter security controls will result, hopefully, if there's good communication across teams, right? And then an ethical hacker's activity, it's to be delimited, right, by the security policy of the organization. So the boundaries are put by the organizational security policy, and on a higher level by the law of the country where the ethical hacker operates. Anytime as an ethical hacker you feel there's a deviation from the allowed tests, even if it's a small thing, even if it's a technical detail, you really want to get approval before going for it. If it's not on the contract, if it's not on the agreed terms, you don't want to take the initiative here because it might end up in very bad results for you. Okay? So, skills of an ethical hacker. Well, an ethical hacker is knowledgeable in network technologies, concepts, and hardware. We've spoken about this before. An ethical hacker is knowledgeable in major operating systems. An ethical hacker knows the principles of programming and the principles of databases as well. An ethical hacker is an expert in computer technology. Now, I don't want you to feel discouraged about this. I've spoken about that before. Certified ethical hacker is a huge opportunity to learn and to round up your skills in different realms of IT. Look at it that way. If during your journey studying for the ethical hacker certification you find that perhaps your SQL skills are not as tuned up as you wish to understand everything in this course, or your scripting skills, or your Linux skills, right? Then rather than dropping the certification, just pause the certification for a week or two and focus on understanding the foundations of those technologies needed for you to understand the material, and then move on. Make sense? Even in hacking teams, there's always someone who's like the real expert in database and the real expert in network, and most of the time it's not a single person. Okay? Now, everyone needs to know a bit about everything, and that's the point. That's the point. So this curricula, you will notice, and you will find, if you're honest to yourself, you will find moments where you say, my knowledge in this specific subject is not enough. When you reach that point, don't drop the certification and don't rush through it because you're gonna, you're possibly not gonna pass a test first, and second, even if you pass it, you're gonna miss an opportunity of really learning the full skill set required for being an effective ethical hacker. So, again, if you reach that point, pause your CH studies for a moment, dedicate some time to learn the foundations of the technology you found yourself lacking on, and then continue and resume your certified ethical hacker studies. All right, non-technical skills of an ethical hacker. An ethical hacker has to be aware of laws and regulations that apply to her or his activity. Now, I know this is boring. We did not study in law school, did we? But we need to, because those regulations, those frameworks affect our activity, and especially if you're a consultant. I mean, if you're employed, yes, but you also have like your company policy and your boss and a lot of more things. But especially if you're a consultant, you're doing this on a freelance basis or on a per contract basis, you're pretty much on your own. So you gotta watch your back. An ethical hacker is also eager and able to learn and not afraid to investigate new concepts and technologies. I don't have to explain more about that. I already said it. Previous slide. An ethical hacker adheres to company security policies. Don't start playing the movie hacker and becoming a dangerous person and things that perhaps you're not. Okay, just you want to make sure your activities are really compliant with your company security policies. An ethical hacker has also strong work ethics and the capability to communicate and resolve problems. Something that every hacker and every pen tester in the world will tell you. Either side of the coin they're at, you know, even the black hats, they will tell you that hacking needs patience. It is not as fast as Hugh Jackman in Swordfish, just connecting to a computer and typing really fast and hacking everything, right? No, it is not like that. Okay, the hacking life cycle. There are, well, this is kind of a summarized hacking life cycle, and it's still valid. We're gonna see there are a couple of more phases we're gonna speak about, but this is a good general overview of it. So it starts with a reconnaissance phase. What do you do here? You start investigating, all right? Once you have defined your target or your targets, you start a phase where you're gathering as much information about your target as you can, really. And in this phase, you normally are just using public sources of information. Don't be fooled. Sometimes information which is public, it's not supposed to be public. It's just, you know, it's been careless to leave it in the public realm, but it's still there. So you can retrieve very valuable information in this phase, and without triggering any alarms. That's the whole deal about reconnaissance. Just be stealthy. Don't trigger any alarms, or don't risk yourself to trigger any alarms yet. Scanning, it's a phase that follows, right? And this is a bit more noisy. It's still investigating. You are not really gaining unauthorized access to any system yet. What you're doing is you're probing networks and systems to get as much information as you can to see which is your potential entry point to that network. So scanning might be detected, and you got to be careful with that. Again, this is still not actively intruding and taking control over any device. The next phase is, though, gaining access. All right, gaining access is quite self-explanatory. You are gaining unauthorized access to a system, and through that system, you aim to gain access to the full network, right? Once you have access, you gotta understand that maybe not all of your work can be done at that particular moment. So you need to find a means to maintain access, and that typically is done through a piece of malware, through a piece of code, a program, which functions as a backdoor that allows easy access for you later on. And once you've done this, you will proceed to cover your tracks and try to delete as much as possible your presence in that system and network. Okay? So again, footprinting, passive information gathering. Scanning is acting upon that information, narrowing down vulnerable and potentially valuable systems. It's more noisy, remember that. Then enumeration, it's going deep in information gathering about scanned systems to determine the value they hold. Notice that enumeration was not on the graphic. It's the line between scanning and enumeration is kind of thin, all right? And but yeah, it's from the standpoint of Easy Counsel, it's a different phase, and it's about, you know, going even deeper and retrieve as much information from certain systems. Then system hacking, It's where you actually gain access to a target system. And this number 5 was not on the graphic either, and it's very important that you understand it's part of system hacking, but it's a separate phase. It's important. It has an importance of its own, and it is typically your first access might be a low access, like not a privileged access, not so good, not so rich to exploit a lot of things. So you also have to learn the means to escalate your privileges so that you can get a more powerful account from which you can do more things. Then the covering tracks phase, again, hiding your intrusion. That's the goal. You delete evidence, you delete logs. Maybe not all the logs, because that would be quite evident. You have to selectively clean tracks that indicate that you've been there. Okay? The most successful attack is the one that is not noticed, but it's still there, right? And then planting backdoors, you make sure that you're still there and that you don't have to go through all the effort you had to go through to get there in the first place. With the backdoor, you just connect to the software that you planted on the system, and you have a special access there. All right. Having seen what it looks like to be an ethical hacker, at least from the standpoint of the activities and skills required, it's time to talk about ethics. Okay? So, with power comes accountability. I'm sure this is the part where people say, oh, yeah, whatever. But it's true. Like, with power comes accountability. When I was first, let me tell you a small story. When I was first spoken of the possibility of becoming an ethical hacker, of course I was thrilled with the idea. And then, I started investigating, and one person that actually held that certification before me said to me, you got to be careful, because you might actually get contacted by someone who's trying to verify whether or not you are really ethical, So I took it as an exaggeration to begin with. But guys, I can tell you stories. I have been contacted by people who want me to do unethical things. Now, have I spoken to them enough to know if they are like undercover agents or, I don't know, people from Easy Council or whatnot? No. Because my answer has been a straight no. Like, well, I'm not going to say the word, but like, get away, right? Get away. Get away from me. But guys, it didn't happen once. It happened a lot of times. A funny story, it's funny because I didn't take the job, but there was a certain guy, it was a Chinese guy, who actually contacted me because he wanted to hack into the lottery in his country. And he wanted to have an ally who was far away and difficult to implicate. And he was an insider, right? He had inside access. So, I mean, that might sound like, a lot of action movie stuff. But it's real. There are some people out there that they are not thinking well. And they might see the opportunity of looking at your profile and seeing that you're an ethical hacker and say, wow, okay, this is my opportunity to get rich, or to get back at someone, to get revenge or whatever, right? And you might be offered large amounts of money, and you gotta be careful, okay? Stay within the parameters of legality and ethics, and you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be a very in-demand professional, build a successful career, be happy. If you're careless, you might end up in jail. Simple as that. Don't forget, ethical hackers operate under carefully defined agreements. So you might even get into trouble just for being careless, even if you're not malicious. Yes, that's true. So if you're getting into this, you're getting into a position of risk. Okay, just by operating as an ethical hacker, you're entering a position of risk where not only you have to be careful of not being malicious, which is kind of obvious, but you gotta be careful of not being careless. Read your agreement quite well, understand exactly what you're supposed to do, and don't go further from that without written agreement from your client. then a strong adherence to a code of ethics will grant you a successful career. As I said before, the opposite might actually destroy your life, and I'm sure you've seen the news. Again, always operate within the boundaries of your agreement. Understand your actions before executing them, right? Some tests might harm systems and information. This is also why I told you before, and I will emphasize this throughout the course. If you don't fully understand a certain technology, don't proceed with the course. Pause, investigate, and make sure you understand exactly what you're doing. Because else, even if you're not malicious, you could be careless and you could damage something, and your career might be in jeopardy. Don't reveal any findings with anyone but the client's appointed personnel to do so. The fact that you're at the cafeteria with some IT people from the customer's company or from the customer's side doesn't mean they are people to which you can reveal your findings. Right? There are always going to be specific persons to which you can reveal stuff, and the rest you don't disclose anything. And then last, don't accept verbal agreements, even if it's your appointed authority within the company or the person the client appointed to verify things with you. If they say, oh well, go ahead and do this and that, but they don't have it, like they don't give it in written, don't do it. Even if they get mad, don't do it. Even if it's the person who hired you, even if it's the CEO, if something goes wrong, you are going to be the one to blame if you don't have written backup. Finally, and something which is also pretty obvious, but provide comprehensive reports on any activity you perform, and make sure to inform the security deficiencies that you find. When you're doing pen testing, it's not only saying, well, there is this and that vulnerability, because that's the job of a person who does vulnerability assessment, or even a software can do that. No. Like, yeah, okay, present the vulnerability, but present also how it was exploited, or how it was attempted to be exploited but unsuccessful, even if you couldn't exploit it. But provide, as detailed information as possible. One good thing about this certification is that it does talk about presenting reports, so you will learn how it's done. And then if you're asked to stop your testing by your client at any point, do it. Even if you're saying like, oh, I'm just pinging, I'm just scanning, just stop, okay? Just stop. You really don't want to go against your customer's will when you are attempting to hack into their network. There are certain laws and regulations, as I said. We're just going to review some relevant acts in the United States, but by all means, please go ahead and investigate your own country's regulations. So the HIPAA, or Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, it's an act that speaks about the privacy and security of health information. Okay, so specifically when you're dealing with organizations which are part of the health system or health services, you might want to take this act into consideration. And there is the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, or SOX. It focuses on measures to ensure accountability and responsibility of corporate authorities in the sense of information handling and disclosure. And it was designed for fraud prevention, but it has implications in the IT security activities. So you want to check that out. The DMCA, I'm pretty sure you've seen this before. It appears a lot in Google when you're looking for, I don't know, certain songs, certain movies, certain artists. And sometimes it says, well, in response to a claim to the DMCA, some content or some results have been removed. That's because some of the results of your search were potentially material that was uploaded illegally. All right, so it violated intellectual property when it was uploaded, and then by the DMCA Act, it was removed from the storage, from the online storage. So that's the DMCA. It protects intellectual property. And then the Federal Information Security Management Act, or FISMA, it's a framework for creating security controls and secure processes for data, specifically when handling federal operations and data. Okay, this is more at the level of the government, and if you're lucky, that might be your client. It might be the government. So, if you're good as well, not only lucky, if you're really good. So you wanna, consider this act as well and understand the parameters that it establishes. Well, I want to thank you for watching this video, and I'm sure it will be of benefit for your IT security career.